to Taking the Myth, your topical, skeptical discussion show. I'm Stephen Knight, and joining me is the mighty Iram Ramzan. Iram, how are you?
All right, geezer.
It's begun already.
How you doing?
It's begun, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've turned to a proper cockney lass, ain't I?
The mocknification process has begun. Yeah.
I sound like a twat, so I'm just going to revert back to my normal voice.
Yeah. A little bit of context here. Iram has betrayed her Manc brethren and moved down south. So all your gravy privileges have now been revoked. Essentially, I'm sure the Manc embassy's been in touch.
They have.
The Bistow Mafia.
Excommunicated. Excommunicated. You know, I've been branded a Mancunian phobe, you know, an uncle Manc Tom. You know, it's just, what can I say? An Arcida Tom. I don't know what the Mancunian. I don't know what the Mancunian equivalent is, but yes, I am a traitor. I've betrayed you all.
Yeah, you scumbag. It's not all bad news though. You've got a fancy swanky new job. You've made it essentially. You are now a bona fide Sunday Times journalist. How does it feel to be on the payroll of the devil?
I'm not going to lie, Stephen. Feels awesome.
Well,
feels awesome. I mean, I was already a traitor, and now I'm actually getting paid for it. So you know,
you might as well.
Life's good. You know, I wake up. And, you know, it's like my wallet is too tight and my diamond shoes just don't fit. Yeah. What can I say?
Trousers full of threatening bits.
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way. This is great news. So you had a bit of a knock. The newspaper you worked at for a while, the Oldham Chronicle, went under unceremoniously, pretty much without notice from what I saw. You might have had a bit more insider knowledge than me, but it's all seemed pretty quick. You found yourself just on the streets of Manchester without a job. And
yeah, I mean, it was devastating because, you know, but it wasn't too bad because Andy Burnham did promise to end homelessness by 2020. So I knew that Burnham was on the case. That wouldn't be too bad.
In safe hands.
Safe hands, yes.
Great. All right. Well, I have a few notice board items to address. I don't know if you want to cast your mind back. There was 2016, as far back as that. Just really strain yourself just to have a think about how far back that was.
I can't remember what I did last week. You want me to remember back to 2016?
Great. Well, let's get nostalgic about 2016 and an individual, a personality, if you will, called Leanne Scorzoni. Does that ring a bell? Does that Quasimodo for you?
Yes, bells are ringing. That was one of the most awkward podcasts I think you ever had.
Yeah. So, for context, Leanne Scorzoni, she started getting noticed sometime after the Boston Marathon bombing. I think probably the one after it, the marathon the year later, she ran that marathon wearing a hijab. She's a white American convert to Islam. And she made newspaper articles running in a hijab the Boston Marathon the year after the Zanev brothers blew the shit out of it, essentially. And she was basically just making a statement like, you know, it's okay to be a Muslim. I'm a liberal Muslim. I'm a good person, etc. Whatever. Fine. But she started sort of putting herself out for interviews. She reached out to me. I didn't reach out to her. She was kind of trying to get active on social media in terms of the discussion on Islamic reform and things like that. So I invited her on the podcast and we spoke for over an hour and a half. And she's probably, out of any guest I've ever had on my podcast, had the most uninterrupted speaking time ever out of anyone. And I tried as hard as I could for an hour and a half to try and find out what she believed about Islam and why, and it was fruitless. And like you said, you listened to it, it was awkward. I wouldn't judge her. I think I quite like her. She's a nice person. It's just she just seems rather confused ideologically. So if anyone wants to torture themselves a little bit, if they want to just punish themselves for no reason whatsoever, check out episode 77 of the Godless Spell Checker podcast. Read the comments on the blog as well. I mean, considering it was a terrible episode, it was one of my most downloaded that year because people just needed to listen what all the fuss was about. But that's not why we mention it. I can say something now that we've known for a while, but didn't make it public because it wasn't public at the time. And however, she's emailed me to let me know she's now left Islam and she's no longer a Muslim. Iram, I'm shocked at this news. Absolutely shocked. I didn't see this coming. Did you?
Mega shocked. I mean, this is just the most shocking thing ever.
Yeah. I thought she'd make it. I really did. I thought that was the religion for her, and no, I knew this had happened. I assumed she'd convert to Buddhism at some point, maybe become a Scientologist and join the Yazidis. Maybe I don't know. I just assumed that she was some sort of religious tourist in a sense. She seemed a very wishy-washy, somebody who's a bit too much of a free spirit. Way too much of a free-falling spirit.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, isn't it? If you're really, really a free spirit, I mean, I'm not judging anyone who converts to a religion, but if you're really free-spirited and you don't like a lot of rules, why go for something that does seem to have very rigid rules? I just didn't understand that.
Last thing I'll say on this, I don't wish any ill will towards Leanne. I think she's quite lovely. Seems like a decent person as far as I can tell. So I wish her luck in her future endeavours. Maybe she'll come back and speak to me when she's a Quaker. I don't know.
Maybe one day she'll come back into the folds of Al-Islam.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. Second notice board item. We got some sit-down time with Douglas Murray. When was that? Is it October?
It seemed like a long time ago. I think it was sometime in October, the beginning of October. Yes. So Douglas. Feels like forever ago.
I think Dougie. I think we can call him Dougie now. I think we're tight enough to refer to him as Dougie. What do you think?
I always refer to him as the D-Meister.
The D-Meister. So we met up with D Mizzle in Manchester. And he was giving the Hollyoaks. No, that would be a terrible lecture, wouldn't it? The Hollyoaks lecture.
Can you imagine Douglas Murray on Hollyoaks? That would be fucking hilarious.
No, he was giving the Hollyoak lecture for UK humanists, Humanist UK even. And it was a great lecture, but he met us beforehand. We got some sit-down time. We spoke for half an hour. Then we just gossiped for about an hour afterwards and walked into a local coffee shop, and it was a very pleasant experience. I think. I think
so. Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with Douglas on everything. I think he's a very decent bloke, and I think when it comes to maybe Islamic extremism, he really does get it on point. And I think sometimes when it comes to the far right in Europe, he's probably not as spot on. And I did ask him about that. But unfortunately, there are a few people who didn't like the fact that I spoke to him. I mean, I'm a journalist. It's what I do. I speak to people. So what?
You should update
your I really don't understand it.
You should update your Twitter bio with that. I think it's perfect. I'm a journalist. I speak to people. So what?
I really should. I'm tempted to.
Well, two questions on that then, because you've nailed. You put your finger on something I was going to ask about anyway. So I suppose first thing we could talk about here is how far do we go in challenging people if we don't agree with their views, if those people are reasonable. So, like you said, I don't agree with Douglas on everything. I disagree with him on the idea of maybe our identity could do with including a bit more Christianity, for instance. He seems to think that it's a positive force in that sense. I mean, and I asked him about that on the podcast. On our interview, on the video interview, and just to get his opinion on record. That's what I want to do. I want to hear what he's got to say, and I believe my audience is smart enough to then make up their mind whether he answered that sufficiently, whether he dodged or not. It seems like unless I'm grabbing hold of him by the melon and shouting, "Listen, you little dick, this isn't the way to go about things," people get annoyed that you're not challenging the guest enough. I think it seems like people constantly want a debate all the time instead of a discussion.
I think it really depends on what kind of interviewer you are, and
I'm a terrible one, Iram.
Yeah, you're a fascist, so obviously.
Whoa, escalated quick.
Yeah. I think it just depends. I mean, if someone's coming out with stuff that is just blatantly untrue or something that is really, really ridiculous, then I think they should be challenged. But I mean, I think a few people were. I remember having this discussion with some friends because they were discussing, say, Dave Rubin, and they're saying that he never challenges people. He just lets them talk. And for him, it's a case of, it's just a platform for anyone who just hates the left, and he never challenges anybody on that. And I suppose I see where they're coming from, because he did have Katie Hopkins on his show, and because she hates snowflakes and the left.
Yeah.
It's a case of, let's just let her speak about it. So I guess it just, if they're coming out with something that's blatantly nonsense, then they should be challenged on it. But if you ask them something and they've given an answer, then it's different.
I agree. So I think I try and separate honestly held opinion from just outright falsehoods or, dangerous rhetoric. If someone was to say something patently untrue, then you'd have to bring it up. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a constructive conversation in terms of getting him to expand on points that he made in the book, and it seems to have had a very positive reaction. So I'm pleased with the way it went. I think what you alluded to before, some of the reaction, I kind of expected that anyway. There's this, we spoke about this before, this whole conversation policing now. Don't speak to this person, don't speak to that person knows this person, that person once shared a platform with that. I think Douglas Murray actually referred to it as a sort of seat sniffing in our interview.
Yeah, I agree with you, because you get into very dangerous territory here when you told people, you can't really speak to such and such a person because they said this and said that. It's different if, for example, you're at some sort of rally or it's some sort of demonstration where you're all united in a cause. Then you see that there are so many different people on that are, they're of dubious character, say, and you see people on the left sharing platforms with, say, Islamists or terrorist sympathizer. I think that's a bit different. Whereas if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're trying to have a constructive debate, then that's different, because you're obviously trying to explore different issues here. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're condoning everything that they're saying. It's like, for example, you had Tommy Robinson on your podcast, didn't you? So does that mean that you agree with him 100%? No, it's a case of you. Well, actually, yeah, you do. But it's a case of you want them to come on so that, other people who might have questions about them, you can ask questions on their behalf. And if, they don't like what's being said, then obviously they can hear exactly what they've got to say, and whether they agree or disagree with them. So, yeah. I think sharing a platform, it depends what you mean by sharing a platform. If you're interviewing someone or having a constructive debate, that's not quite the same as going on a march with somebody where they're ideologically completely different, because then in a way you are sort of lending support to them. And I guess Gary Young kind of touched upon this when he did that documentary, Angry White American.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because I'd been circulating. I'd be very interested to get your thoughts on this, because I circulated a clip of him confronting white supremacist bogeyman Richard Spencer. And in the clip that was circulating on Twitter, he kind of, was he called Gary Young, the journalist? Almost seemed like he was getting the better of Richard Spencer. I kind of celebrated this little clip. I was saying, look, this is how you deal with someone like that. You let them know that they're a ridiculous person. Richard Spencer stood there practically saying that slavery was a good thing, and this is a very important thing to get on record. However, when I watched the full documentary and saw that entire interaction in context, I don't think he did as well as I initially thought, unfortunately. He seemed to get, overly emotional, stormed off. I think Richard Spencer would probably chalk that off as a win, and so would his fans, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why he got emotional, because, this guy is basically saying to him that, well, you'd have been better as a slave.
Yeah, you're not English. You're not really English, even though you were born in England.
Yeah, so I can see why he was a bit emotional in that regards, because for him it's going to be quite personal. But then at the same time, I just didn't. It seemed like a virtue signaling kind of exercise to me. Like, oh, I'm gonna come here and just prove that I'm better than this racist idiot, and flounce off. I just think we know Richard Spencer is,
Let's look. He's a massive. Let's look at this man. He's basically saying slavery is good. He's saying he wants an ethno state. I think he said he's not a white supremacist, but he wants an ethno state of white people. So
he just doesn't. And I think he wants a safe space. Did he want a safe
massive white safe space, a far white safe space. And he says, like, he's not a white supremacist, he just wants an ethno state of white people. So basically, in his ideal state, there is no black people. What's the difference between that and a white supremacist? It's a distinction without a difference.
Come on, there is a distinction.
Yeah.
So
how hard is it for an intelligent individual to make this guy look stupid? Just, lead him down the path. Don't get angry with him. Especially, from a general member of the public, you could probably expect maybe the flouncing and the getting emotional and the virtue signaling, like you were saying. But from a journalist who knows what he's going into, who's presumably watched Richard Spencer footage end on YouTube as part of preparation for this confrontation and this encounter, should I say, just to kind of blow it in that moment, it just seemed like a missed opportunity to me.
Did you, in that moment, were you thinking of your pal Louis there?
Yes, Louis Theroux would have been excellent. So Richard Spencer, why are you a twat? That's what he would have said. He wouldn't have said that, but that would have been the hidden meaning from whatever he did say, and the entire audience would have realised it. But yeah, you need Louis Theroux in that situation. You don't need someone to shout these people down, because they're not going to change their mind. You just need to let them speak and guide them in the right direction to get their absurd beliefs on record, and that's all the damage you need to do to these people, because they're that absurd.
Was it on record before that Richard Spencer believed slavery is a good thing? Was that the first time he admitted it?
To be fair, I'm not a big follower of his work, to be honest.
Really? I thought you were like a disciple or something.
Yeah, that's it. We'll refer to him as Mein Führer for the rest of this conversation. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's a well-rehearsed little tidbit. I'm sure he's got this wonderful, rousing speech in his head about what slavery meant to the African Americans and what it's done for them.
I think if it's been on record before that this is what he believes, then I didn't really see the point of the interview then, because the whole point is that it should be something just to let him carry on speaking and allow people to realise just what an arse he is.
Yeah.
Or if he hasn't said that on record before, then it's good that it's there on record to show what he actually believes.
Yeah. It's like, this man thinks slavery was a good thing. End of discussion. Move on. Why are we paying any more attention to him? Yeah. So this kind of ties me into my first topic. This is a huge story here, massive. It sent shockwaves through the digital realm, and I'll read from the BBC headline: far-right accounts lose Twitter verified tick.
Have you lost yours?
I never had one. I'm not bothered. I don't let it bother me. I don't even want one. I don't even want a blue tick. I don't need no blue tick. Even if they was to give me one, I'd say no thanks. I don't want one.
Methinks the fascist doth protest.
I don't want one. I don't want a blue tick.
I want a blue tick.
I don't want a blue tick.
I applied for one and I didn't get a blue tick. I've seen some right tools on there who get a blue tick. And I don't get a blue tick. But do you see me moaning about it? No.
I applied after I was on the BBC. I thought, because I seem to get an influx of followers from that, and I thought, well, they can make sure they're identifying the right person or whatever, and Twitter said no, basically. But I don't even want one. I'm not bothered. I don't let it bother me, Iram. I don't let it bother me. I don't need a blue tick, honestly. I'm not bitter about it. I just don't. Blue tick. What does it mean? Who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. Shove your blue tick where the sun don't shine.
They give one to Courtney Jezebel Whirleman, but I don't need one. I don't need one, so it's fine. Stop. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I don't need a blue tick. It's okay.
Name. Oh my God.
Dear Diary, several months ago, Twitter refused to give me a blue tick. So the Twitter blue tick fiasco. So essentially, I'm sure all my listeners are savvy in the ways of social media, but the blue tick that appeared on Twitter profiles, as far as I was to understand, it was just to notify users on Twitter that, yes, this is the Bill Gates you are looking for. Yes, this is really Lady Gaga. It was just to let you know that, I think the term that they used were notable people or people of interest or experts within their field. So, and it was never a case of, well, this person's got a ridiculous number of followers, let's verify them. I've seen people verified with like 500 or fewer followers because they're a journalist, or, they're a leading CEO at a tech firm or something like that. So it was just basically to stop impersonation. And I think these people, if you were searching for specific topics, I think these people had come up higher in the search results because they were considered either experts or notable people in the field. So people were getting annoyed about this. They were saying they sort of started seeing this blue tick as somehow an endorsement. So rather unfavourable characters, shall we say, were being blue tick verified. So we had the person who organised the Charlottesville rally where Heather Heyer was murdered, and I'm not lumping these people into the same category, obviously, but they were in this news report that I'm looking at. As a matter of fact, the news report uses pictures of Tommy Robinson and Richard Spencer. Them two both had their blue tick verification strip. I think this stems from the fact that a while back there was a protest at the Twitter, well, not necessarily protest, but at the Twitter offices in San Francisco. Someone got a projector and projected the words on the side of the building that said, "I verify Nazis." And Twitter doesn't like negative publicity, especially when celebrities get involved. And this is one of them things that celebrities can really get involved about because the targets are white men, and that's safe. What's your whole thought on the stripping people of their blue ticks?
I think it's ridiculous. The whole point of the verification tick was just to show that this is really... this person is who they say they are, because obviously on Twitter you can set up parody accounts as well. So it's so that people know that it's the real person, that it is the actual celebrity or well-known public figure. It's got nothing to do. It shouldn't be about the Twitter's endorsing their views, because now that means that anyone who does have a blue tick, they're instantly endorsed now by Twitter. So they've actually, it's an own goal, really, if you think about it.
I agree.
That means everyone who has one now means that their views are agreed upon by Twitter. So
Twitter
really,
approved.
It's Twitter approved. So really, what was the point of all this?
Well, I'll just read some of the official rhetoric behind it from Twitter themselves. Twitter originally said that the badge was being, this is from the BBC, was saying that the badge was being interpreted as, I quote, an endorsement or an indicator of importance. And they said they were going to address that misinterpretation. And they seem to have addressed that by actually now making it an endorsement or an indicator of importance. The new guidelines say verified status can be lost if a person breaks Twitter's rules or promotes hate on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or disease. Jesus Christ, that's a long list.
Disease? Wow.
Disease, yeah. So what happened here? There was a massive outpouring of outrage because of Nazis getting verified. So Twitter, to deal with this swelling of reports, have now de-verified these accounts. And now what's happening is I think they've created more work for themselves, because now it's become clear that the blue tick is somehow related to the content or political ideas of the individual. Every time a blue ticky account missteps now or says something that can be considered offensive or targeting a certain race or gender or whatever, that's getting reported and flagged. People are just looking everywhere now for blue ticks that are stepping out of line so they can say, look, Twitter, look at your hypocrisy. It's some woman, some loon the other day was saying how much she hated white people, blue ticked account. And I mean, I'm not offended because we are the master race, so it's fine. But I mean, surely it's hypocritical to penalise anti-black racism and not the other way around. So people are pointing that kind of stuff out now, and I think Twitter are just gonna help generate more and more work for themselves. It's going to be a bigger headache in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's really sort of, they're not consistent enough when it comes to suspending accounts. And yet, when it comes to this blue tick, they've decided, they're going to strip people of blue ticks. It's going to create a lot more work. And, you think that time and energy could have been better spent on suspending really, really hateful or abusive accounts, maybe. But why strip somebody off this blue tick? I guess maybe it makes me glad I don't have one now, because then people be scrolling through my timeline and saying, oh, she once liked something. Oh, that makes her a Nazi sympathizer. Twitter, do your job.
Yeah, I don't even want one anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sound really convincing.
No, I'm not bothered. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So, I mean, one of the worst things about Twitter as well is, so people are asking me, should Tommy Robinson and Richard Spencer be stripped of their blue tick? And my question is, well, what have they done? What was the thing that made Twitter say, yeah, no blue tick for you? And unfortunately, Twitter will never specify. It's always some vague stock response. You've been stripped of your blue tick for violating our terms of service. And I've had this when I've been suspended. You ask specifically what terms of service you violated and where, and they will never release that information. So, there might be some very good reasons why Richard Spencer, Tommy Robinson have been stripped of their blue ticks, but until they tell me what, I can't form an educated opinion on why they've been stripped of their blue tick privileges.
Exactly. We shall never know. See, we're living in a fascist state now. Fascist state without a blue tick.
I mean, I suppose the fact that it was a tick anyway is kind of like, I mean, they should just maybe have the word verified underneath the name or something, rather than a blue tick. I suppose the tick is like...
Oh, yep. Seriously, like, people are losing their shit because it's a tick. Like, oh, that's the wrong symbol. Tick looks like an approval. Oh, fuck's sake.
Shit tick. I don't even want one. So, I believe you wanted to mention something, fairly important, but it's not quite up there in terms of blue ticks and Twitter. And there's been some aggro, one might say, in Pakistan of late.
Oh God, yeah. So there's supporters of an Islamist political party, so that the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, and their leader is Khadim Hussain Rizvi, and they've blocked the capital city of Islamabad because they're protesting over something ridiculous. They believe there was a change. A small change in wording to an electoral law, changing a religious oath to a simple declaration, which is said amounted to blasphemy. So instead of I solemnly swear, it was I believe. So there was some sort of change from one of those to the other. And they thought it meant that they thought it was blasphemous, basically. And it's in regard to the declaration that the Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet. So just a tiny change of wording made them think that they were, committing blasphemy. So they've taken to the streets, blocked the capitals, and they're, demanding whoever was responsible for it resign.
And there have been injuries, I believe. I don't know if there've been any deaths. I hope not, but it's been getting quite testy in terms of people trying to disperse these protesters and clashes that are happening. Yeah,
the government called in the military to put an end to it, but they're still going.
I have to be keeping a close eye on that one. But so what I've seen as well, I've probably seen more apology for this than I have actual details. People have been saying it's entirely political, and I think it sort of is, but it's politics that are completely informed by a religious conviction.
And what the worst thing about it is that instead of the government saying you're just chatting shit, the government blamed the change on a clerical error, quote unquote, and then restored the original format. So they're actually making it worse and say, well, no, you're actually speaking nonsense here. That's simply not true. get off the streets, go home, have a bath, and take up something more constructive and soothing, like knitting. I hear that really soothes you, but no. Unfortunately, we have these frigging mad mullahs who are holding the country to ransom, and unfortunately, it seems that most people are actually sympathetic to the reasons behind it. So you can't really challenge anything, and you can't challenge these religious people, because if you do, people are genuinely scared if they challenge them because of what they might do.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? And you kind of suspect in these situations there's a lot of people that internally question the beliefs or the overzealous attitudes of some of the muftis there. But obviously, to speak up with conviction is almost a death sentence. So, I mean, it's easy for me to be brave and shout, Jesus was shit. Nothing's going to happen to me. But I suppose it's different in that context to speak up. I mean, we've seen what can happen just from a misunderstanding, let alone a genuine dissenting voice.
Exactly.
It's off my holiday list, Iram. I'll be honest with you, it's off my holiday list. I know you like the place, but I can't see myself visiting anytime soon.
Well, unfortunately, it seems that the religious madness is not just confined to Pakistan. Across the border in India, people are protesting over a bloody movie character. So it's the Bollywood movie Padmavati, and the director of that movie is trying to bring alive the story of a queen that may or may not have existed.
Careful.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's true. Hasn't gone down well with the Hindu extremists. So, and unfortunately, but the claim is that it distorts history, and some people have called for the death of the director and the actress who played the Queen in this movie. And I just have to say to these people, I'm sorry, but when has a Bollywood movie ever portrayed anything historically accurately? Never. Not really. I mean, Bollywood's known for it, but that's what movies do. Unless you're making a fucking documentary, then it shouldn't really matter. Movies are there to, movie makers have an artistic license.
Yeah.
To play around with characters, and they don't necessarily have to stick to all the facts. They have some room to play around.
I've seen
with
Braveheart. I know.
Exactly. Now, unless you're making a documentary, then I don't see why anyone should have a problem with it. But unfortunately, we're seeing now in India the rise of the Hindu extremists. So I guess Pakistanis and Indians should be able to bond over that. Oh, you have religious nutters in your country. Oh, we do too. Yay.
Oh, great. So, yeah, I noticed as well
there's more that unites us than divides us.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about making an accurate Hindu Bollywood movie, just remember, Hindon't, I think, is the general rule.
Ah, that was lame.
I'm sorry. I've got more. I have more.
Oh, no.
What's a Hindu?
What?
Lays eggs.
You what?
What's a Hindu?
Don't know.
Lays eggs.
I don't even get that.
So, any of our listeners who managed to get that, tweet Iram with an explanation.
Oh no! I'm going to sound like a right thicko now.
You've got 280 characters to work with there. I'm just going to let it hang. I'm not even going to explain it. I'm just going to let it eat away at you.
It correctly.
Pardon?
What's a Hindu?
All right, let's try again. What's a Hindu? Lays eggs.
Oh my god, I still don't get it.
Forget it.
I'm going to Google it.
All right, well...
Do you know what? It's going to be so obvious once I see it written or whatever. I'm going to get bombarded with people saying, the answer is this, you thicko.
Hashtag Hindon't. So this...
That's what I was thinking, Hindon't, but...
It's probably one of them ones you have to see written down, I think. And my Australian / South African / New Zealand accent probably didn't help matters. But this is a headline I saw the other day, and it made my week. It's the most northern, blasphemous headline you could possibly hope for. This is via Sky News. Headline: Greggs sorry for replacing Jesus with sausage roll in Christmas adverts. So should we explain what Greggs is to our American listeners and our non-British audience?
Yes.
I mean, it's basically somewhere you can get a semi-warm pasty from.
Should we explain pasty?
Oh yeah, this is really going to take some unpacking, isn't it?
Yes. So a pasty is, a staple food in the north of England, and it consists of some pastry with filling inside. And most popular one is probably like a cheese and onion one. Then you have
steak bake.
Sausage and bean one. I think
sounds horrible. Veg.
Yes, and you get a vegetable pasty, and then it's then warmed up, and then you can have it. I don't know. Every time I've had a Greggs pasty, it's always been fucking scalding hot. So
really? You're the one then. Yeah. You're the one who gets the food that's hot, and nobody. I don't know what time it is that you pop in there. Although, having said that, now you're in London. Do they take your Greggs loyalty card off you?
I think they've just revoked my membership, so I can no longer get pasty, gravy,
or a lukewarm sausage roll. Yeah, it's all over for you.
Curry sauce as well. They don't do curry sauce down here.
So. Greggs, it's essentially a baker. You can get sandwiches from there.
And coffee, but I've never had the coffee.
I know, I don't
know if it's any shit or good.
No, I can't vouch for Greggs. I can say, in the interest of impartial reporting, that other bakers are available in the high street. So Greggs have had to apologise. There was calls for them to be boycotted because of a publicity image they produced, and it's a picture of the three wise men sat round what would normally be Jesus in a manger, and they've replaced it with a sausage roll. And so two things happened here. One, a number of Christians went mental, enough of them to cause a kerfuffle in the media. Now, when Christians go mental, luckily no one gets the head cut off in the UK, generally speaking. So that was some of the... So first of all, I was going for the humorless Christians, telling them to lighten up, and it's, it's not for them to decide how other companies market their products, etc. Get a life kind of attitude. But then a lot of the sort of right-wing conservative atheists, they were like, well, I don't know why they're posh. well, they were kind of making this point. Well, imagine what would have happened if they'd have mocked Islam. They always seem to bring it back to Islam, which I kind of understand, but I think that Christians do deserve a fair bit of mockery for getting their knickers in a twist about a sausage roll manger scene.
Well, can I just say that as a Muslimic, I feel that
anyway, where's my ray gun?
That the sausage roll was deliberately, there to exclude me. On the one hand, we have Tesco, and it's Muslims in the advert.
Oh, they actually lost a shit about that, didn't they?
Yeah, to show that Christmas is for everyone, even Muslims. And then there's Greggs with its sausage roll, trying to offend me. Why is no one talking about that?
So Christians are offended and Greggs have apologised. What if a load of vegetarians just went, like me, really annoying... And Muslims, because there's pork for one, and then there's meat for two. I'm deeply offended that a sausage roll would be in the... Oh my goodness, they used a picture of a sausage roll for a bakery that sells sausage rolls. Imagine if I kicked off about that, they'd say, piss off, mate, and rightly so. But a couple, some Christians kick off and they're like, soz, I'm really sorry. Sorry, Jesus. So it's not necessarily the fact that they do these things that annoy me. They can do what they want and I can like it or not. It's the fact that they apologise afterwards that really pisses me off. But I suppose when you live in a nation where identifying as a Christian, I suppose, counts to some demographic in terms of money, I think you probably have to be careful about pissing off large portions of people if you want them to eat your lukewarm pastry-based confectionery. So yeah, there's that. So there we go. Angry Christians at sausage roll Jesus. But the headline just made my day, and I'm kind of panicking now because I've got to kind of segue into terrorism, and I'm not sure how to get there from Jesus sausage roll.
Well, speaking of religiously inspired events,
it'll do, I suppose. We've got to talk, and this is just—it's one of them. It's just familiar. We may as well record a segment of 5 minutes about an Islamist car or truck attack, and say, an Islamist ploughed into a crowd of people and leave that bit blank and just fill it in every other week rather than having to have this conversation every time.
I just think, where on earth are they going to strike next? And it's just, I don't know, it's just really devastating, really.
It is, and it's one of them things that I think I've said this before, I don't think you can stop it, or if you can, it's going to take a lot smarter minds than me to figure this out. But I mean, what we're referring to is the man in New York who drove his car down the bike lane, and I think it was 8 people were killed in the end. He arrived in the US from Uzbekistan in 2010, and he's married. He has 3 kids, and he killed 8 people, injured 12. And just seemed really unrepentant about this. So, he was very clear as to why he was doing it. He was actually shot and apprehended, which is unusual in these attacks. They usually either kill them at the scene or they end up in a standoff with him later down the line and end up killing him that way. They've got him inside in prison, so maybe they can get some information from him, but it's looking like he was a quote-unquote lone wolf radicalised via the internet. So it's just sad, but what else is there to add to this? We do this every time we talk about a car attack, we talk about how awful it is. Nothing changes. They mop the blood up from the pavement, they put in a few monstrosity looking concrete blocks to stop cars getting in the area, and we carry on as before.
I guess what changes is the response to it. So you'll have the emergency services that will get there on the scene as soon as, because they know the drill now. So with each attack, it just means they're able to at least respond a lot quicker now and better, and try and minimize any casualties, which, I guess is the best you can hope for if you can't thwart it completely. And we saw that on an Oxford Street in London.
Yes.
Earlier, was it this week or last week now?
It was last week.
Yeah, so there was some people were suggesting that there'd been gunshots, and then Tommy Robinson tried to suggest it was an Islamist attack without any verification from any source. So I guess, and now I'm unsympathetic to him losing his blue tick now, which really didn't help. You don't know what's happened. Police haven't said anything, and then people just jump into conclusions and, trying to make it sound as though, it is a terrorist attack, it's an Islamist terrorist attack. Well, we don't bloody know that yet. And it turned out it was just a load of nothing. It was just a load of nothing. But, Ollie Murs had also suggested there was a gun shop.
In Selfridges. Everybody get out. Get out now. Ollie Murs is a British pop star, would you say? Did he win one of the talent shows he did, didn't he?
Was it X Factor or something?
I don't give
I'm really
a
bad
shit.
on my pop culture as well. Yeah,
I'm pretty bad. But yeah, so here's what happened is, first thing, it's understandable. Something happened and panic spread very quickly, because for those living in Europe, especially capital cities now on the tubes and trains and things like that, in London, given the number of attacks attempted attacks we've already seen this year, people are gonna instantly think now terrorist, and the entire Oxford Circus, I think, was evacuated. And people, and the armed response turned up. Because obviously they've drilled for this now, and that they were there pretty quick, and they investigated. It turned out that it was nothing. It was just a whole lot of panic over nothing, and it just goes to show you the public consciousness at the minute that something like that can happen so quickly over nothing. But like you say, this is one of the reasons I can't get on board with Tommy Robinson. I say this all the time. People get annoyed with me that I don't endorse him, and it's like I don't think he's what the far left describe him as, this far right neo-Nazi fascist racist. I don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. But I don't think he's this savior, sticking the truth to the man, and he's completely unobjective. He shares shit all the time that's not true, or it's a half truth. He doesn't check it, and why? I mean, just to put out there what he actually tweeted as this was unfolding. He said, this is a tweet that he soon deleted, "How long until we find out that today's attack in Oxford Circus was by a Muslim who was a gay known to our security services?" Well, longer than he expected, because there was no suspect. It turned out to be something over nothing. And the thing is, people are going to... that kind of thing, prominent people making those kind of statements before they've got all the information, is only going to hurt the cause of people wanting to tackle Islamism and Islamic terrorism, because there's a massive section of the far left who don't want to hear about this topic. All they hear when someone makes noises about Islam and Islamism is a bigot talking, a white supremacist talking, a racist talking. They don't want to hear it. So they're not going to listen to Tommy Robinson the 9 times out of 10 when he actually is right about an Islamist attack. They're going to all pick up on that one instance of him jumping the gun, saying it was a Muslim, and saying, "Ha, got you. You prejudiced this entire event because of your anti-Muslim bigotry. You're not worth listening to, etc., etc." So he's just hurting his own cause doing this, and he's proving that he's not a reliable source of information on this topic, unfortunately.
I just think he's really irrelevant now. I think there was a point where what he did and what he said was really important, and it had a massive impact. I guess it still does in a way, but I don't know. I just think he's largely irrelevant. I don't think he's doing anything constructive, and it's a shame that the whole exercise that Quilliam did with him to try and get him on the right side just didn't work. They tried, it failed. What can you do? And he's just not helped himself, unfortunately.
No, I can't get on board with his tactics or his rhetoric. And again, this puts me in this. It makes it seem like I'm sitting on the fence, because I get people saying that I'm a Tommy Robinson fanboy because I refuse to condemn him for things that I don't think are true. I see this a lot of times when people criticizing you on Twitter. Like, even I'm criticized for doing this podcast with you because I've spoke to Tommy Robinson.
It's not just that. It's a lot of things. Like, people always accuse you of being some sort of apologist for the far right or for racists. And then as well, with me, it's a case of, oh, she's a Stephen Knight sycophant, I think, excuse me, I have a mind of my own, I ain't no sycophant.
Yeah. It is funny because, I mean, it goes back to what Douglas Murray was actually saying about Tommy Robinson. He was saying that his life would be made a lot easier if he could have just thrown him under the bus like everyone else. But he says he can't come out in good conscience and say he's a Nazi fascist, because I can't say those things either, because I just don't think they're true. And it gets to the point now where these people's reputations are so toxic, you almost want it to be true just so you can say, yeah, there he is, there's the Nazi, there he is, Zeke hailing all over the place, we can throw him under the bus now. But I just can't. If I dislike someone or don't want to support someone, I want to do it for reasons that are based in reality. I don't want to make shit up just to make the argument easier for myself. So yeah, there's reasons why I can't get behind him. I don't retweet him. I don't promote him. I don't agree with a lot of what he does. But then on the other side, I don't think he's this evil neo-Nazi racist fascist that the far left seem to accuse him of being.
I don't think he's evil, but I really do have a massive problem with the types of groups and people that he associates with. And I just think he's just gone even worse. But is he really that influential and relevant?
I think he's an opinion former. I really do. I think he is worth engaging. I think he is worth talking to. Like, you wouldn't... I mean, I understand why people interview him. You wouldn't invite him to, like, secular conference 2017 or 2018, would you? He's not really someone who's got a valuable contribution to make in terms of secularism and Islamic reform and things like that, apostates, etc. He's a very anti-Islam critic, which is fine. I'm down with that. It's knowing where he fits into the argument, and I'm not quite sure he's irrelevant, but he's kind of he doesn't seem to have progressed at all. He seems to be moving sideways.
Yeah,
like a crab.
Like a crab. Well, I think he's just.
But then again, we're talking about him, so I mean, although we talk about anyone, don't we? Let's be fair.
But we're a bit sad, you see. So we talk about everyone. We're just a bunch of gossip mongers. I think he's not a reliable source. But didn't he have a book that came out? And he was in Manchester for it. Did you go? Did you get your autograph?
Did I get it signed to Stephen? Best of buds. No, I did not go. I've actually read his autobiography. I actually started reading his other book on the Quran, but it was just. I kind of put it down. This might be my fault as well, because as soon as this is the problem with being a religious critic, is you have to read a lot of scripture, and I did used to do a lot of that and really try and get to grips with the passages and things like that, and I just thought, you know what, fuck it, because if I'm spending my time reading the holy books of religions I don't even believe in, the religious have won a little bit. Surely the fact that I don't believe in these things means I should celebrate the fact that I don't have to learn them and know them. So I try and spend less time doing that now, because I think getting into arguments about scripture with religious people is a bad way to go, because I think you can just nip that in the bud straight away and say, well, you need to prove that this is an authority. You need to tell me what proves the validity of this scripture. You can't appeal to the scripture to prove the scripture. That's my approach, and that's my excuse for being lazy nowadays. So yeah, this book was basically, it contained the whole Quran, and it's him and a co-author, and they go through it bit by bit and they kind of put the Quran in chronological order and try and pick it apart and show where it's this and that. But it seemed very verbose. It's they were going round in circles and mentioning the same things 4 or 5 times before getting to the point, and it was just dull for me. It wasn't really my cup of tea.
I just don't see the point of the book. Like there are so many books out there that have debunked what they say is debunking the Quran or pointing out what they see as the flaws. So I'm not really sure what the point is of that, unless there's something really different in the book. It's like an ex-Muslim account on Twitter was just saying, I don't need to buy Tommy's book because I already know what's in the Quran. I don't agree with it. Why would I buy his book for that? So
I think their marketing, actually, they were marketing it to, this will explain to the average Joe why so many Muslims are terrorists. I think they're trying to hit the market of people like, why are these people doing what they're doing? They're psychopaths, they're lunatics. It makes no sense. I think he's saying, well, this is why. And the thing is, the book's selling really well from what I've seen. So yeah, I think, but we've spent a good 20 minutes talking about Tommy Robinson. Is this a good or a bad thing?
I guess I just proved myself wrong, that maybe he is still a bit relevant, but not as much as he used to be, maybe.
All right, well, talking about something that's been capturing my attention, I just wondered if you wanted to talk about anything specific before I get on to the Nazi pug dog.
I'm sure I'll come to something later, but do you want to go on with the Nazi pug?
Would I? I'm somewhat of a free speech fascist, ironically. I'm a free speech absolutionist, and I've got stronger in this view over the years. In fact, I think I've progressed on this point. I think a while back I was probably a bit like, you can't say that, it's hateful kind of thing, and now I'm like, just say what you want and we'll sort it out. Don't get the law involved. And so what happens is, when you're somebody who's looking out for transgressions on free speech, you invariably have to defend the acts of horrible, disgusting, cretins who say the most horrendous things that go against your very moral fibre and the core of your beliefs. You have to say, I don't agree with this person, but you should be allowed to say it. Or you have to say, this guy's a bit of a moron, but he should be allowed to be a moron. And I think this is the perfect description.
Are you just talking about yourself?
Yeah. So basically, I got drunk the other night and I was out in the street shouting about Jews, and you know how it is. No, there's a gentleman, and I'll refer to him as a gentleman. There's a gentleman called Mark Meechan. Seems like this gentleman has a very dark sense of humour, and to be honest, I've got a bit of a dark sense of humour. I'm on my best behaviour on the podcast. If anyone was to record me secretly, I'd probably be in a lot of trouble. But he put a video online of him getting his girlfriend's pug dog, this cute little animal. He trained it to Sieg Heil, to give the Nazi salute. He did this by filming it, watching videos of Hitler speeches. He did this by giving the command, gas the Jews. He'd repeatedly say, gas the Jews in this video, and the dog could give the Sieg Heil. And it was all very dark. But for me, it didn't seem like Nazi propaganda. It wasn't a promotional video. It seemed like some guy just having a lark, being a bit of a dick. Now, I understand people finding that very offensive and off colour and being annoyed about it. But that's not really the issue. I think it's a given that would offend people. What the issue is, it received complaints, actual reports were made to the police, and they came and arrested him. And this is now, in England, in 2017, an ongoing court case. I say England, I think he's from Scotland, but he is Scottish. He's got a YouTube channel, and he makes videos, and he's got a blue tick, this motherfucker. God damn it.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got a blue tick. He's on. Oh, look at Mr. Fancy. Send him to jail. Yeah, I don't feel so sympathetic to his cause now. Now he's got a blue tick and I haven't. It doesn't say where he's from in Scotland. I don't think it matters. But he's made a video with this in. He's uploaded it. He said it was to wind up his girlfriend. He says he's not an anti-Semite. He's been critical of anti-Semitism. He just said it was a joke. And his girlfriend's supporting him. His girlfriend knows what he's like, knows who he is. He's in on the joke. She's fine with it. They all think it's a ridiculous situation that they're in court. And it's ongoing. So my question to you is, should I be able to make a video of me training an animal to Sieg Heil, to the command of gas the Jews? Should I be able to do those things without finding myself in trouble with the law?
Why not?
Why not? Brilliant. That's the end of that one.
Okay, I think it's a bit... I can see why some people find it really offensive and stupid, but... I mean, really, making his dog do a stupid thing on video, isn't that what people do on YouTube?
Exactly. That's what YouTube was invented for, surely. So I don't think this guy's a Nazi. I don't think he's an anti-Semite. I just think he's someone with a dark sense of humour. Made a video, didn't expect it to quite blow up as much as it did, and now he could be facing prosecution. And it's just one of these strange nanny state things that seems to be going on at the minute, where we're really clamping down on forms of speech that can be perceived to be hateful, etc. And it's one of them things where this is why I love America, land of the free. First Amendment's one of the most beautiful things on this planet, as far as I'm concerned. You know, you making Nazi dog videos left, right, and centre in America is no problem. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. People always say to me, why do you bother defending people who say unpopular and hateful things? And it's why do you defend their speech? And it's like, well, you don't need to defend the speech of people who are saying perfectly nice and popular things. You know, the popularity that takes care of that itself. The only way you can measure free speech in a society is by how the deeply offensive and unpopular opinions are treated. And what these people don't recognise, the people that are outraged by this, who say fuck him, he's saying Nazi things, etc., is that one day that pendulum might swing in their direction, and whatever they perceive to be their beliefs or their humour or their convictions or their ideology might become deeply offensive to a large section of society. And by what metric then are they going to protest when the police come knocking on their door? I appreciate it's a slippery slope, but that is what tends to happen.
I think, yeah, the threshold should be high. I mean, what he did was a bit stupid, and, you know, people should be able to mock him if they don't like what he did. But I think you're right. If free speech is only for people we agree with, then it's not really free speech.
No.
It's not. It's just being, that's what you do with your best friends. You probably agree with a lot. They say, yeah, you look fine. No, your bum doesn't look big in that. But I agree. Free speech. If it's truly free, it should be free for all people, regardless. I think there should be a threshold. If they're clearly inciting violence and probably hatred, then yeah, that's definitely wrong. And there are laws against that.
What I would suggest is anyone who's listening to get the full context, just type in Nazi pug in YouTube and see what he did. It's clearly a guy taking the piss. But the Daily Record summarised this as prosecutors allege Meechan communicated material that would cause fear and alarm and stir up hatred on religious grounds. He also faces an alternative charge of posting a video on social media and YouTube which was grossly offensive because it was anti-Semitic and racist in nature, and the prosecution claim it was aggravated by religious prejudice. So this trial continues in January. He's in court for this. And it just seems incredible to me. Like, I can almost understand people saying, look at this guy, he's a bit of a dick. Who is he? Okay, he's this guy who lives here. Not necessarily lives here, but, we know who he is. He looks like this. I probably don't want to give this guy a job if this is what he does in his spare time. I mean, I actually think that's probably a bit too far, but I can understand the court of public opinion not looking on him favourably. But I think for the police to come knocking on your door for uploading a video of you pissing about with a dog, you're not even abusing the dog, you're not even harming the animal. No animals were harmed in the making of this Nazi pug video. So I don't...
Are we sure about that?
It seems that way. I mean, I don't know if they're going to call the pug to the stand at some point to give the pug's account. But yeah, it seems like they're dragging their feet on it because they know there's a lot of media attention on this now. And the funny thing is, I've seen a lot of people pick up the cause for him and champion the situation he's in, and they seem like right-leaning people, right-wingers. I think Tommy Robinson even interviewed him. I'm not saying Tommy Robinson's a right-winger necessarily, but I think he did it in the context of Rebel, and they seem overtly right-leaning to me. And it just seems like free speech has become a focus of the right wing now, and it used to seem like a very left liberal thing to fight for free speech, and we're not arsed now as long as it's not our popular fuzzy pro Jeremy Corbyn views that they're coming for.
I really want to watch the video now.
Yeah, it's do it. It's funny that that's the kind of thing that would get somebody in trouble with the law, but there has been a whole moral panic now about what's posted on social media. Police have been issuing warnings now for months. People have... The statistics on this that came out a while back make for really alarming reading. The amount of people who've been investigated or reported to the police for saying things on the internet. And it just seems insane to me, but it seems like a step backwards. So that's Nazi pugs covered. Is there something you want to jump on?
What about the documentary on Muslim marriage? Do you want to...
Oh, yeah. So we had this documentary fronted by one of our favourite people, Mariam Francois Sarah, or just Mariam Francois now. Just Mariam Francois. I've got a confession. I found myself... I mean, I used to hate, really despise every time she was on the screen. Just something about her really used to rub me up the wrong way. She always sounded like she needed a glass of water when she spoke, and it used to just irritate me. And I think it was more the thing she was saying. She always dodged questions and turned it around to something else and blah blah blah. And I actually found myself slowly falling for her in that documentary. And I feel...
Is it because her hair's on show?
I don't know what it is. There was something about her that I saw her in a new light, Iram, and I feel dirty.
You make me sick.
So I'm guessing you're still not a fan of this lady, or I mean, maybe we should talk about who she is in general. She's a Muslim. She's a white British, born in France, lives in England. She speaks with an English accent, so she's obviously been in England for a long time. I'm assuming she's got an English passport. She started doing the circuit as the Rent a Muslim mouthpiece on the or the religious debate programs on Sunday morning, and she used to wear the hijab and speak about Islam, about what a wonderful spiritual enlightening belief system it was, and sort of bat off any criticisms of the faith. She made quite a big name for herself for a while, and she seemed to disappear Now she seems to re-emerge, and she seems a lot less conservative in her dress, to the point where it's more of a headscarf than a veil, if she has one on at all. Now, I'm not bothered about that, really. I think, that's fine. She gets to decide how she dresses. It just seems like it's taken a different step without her acknowledging, given how pro she was it before. You think like she'd acknowledge the fact she's no longer conservative in that sense. What do you think?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, like, great that she gets to choose how she dresses, but, she used to go on about how the hijab was great and, how she didn't want to be judged by how she looked, and that was the point of the scarf. And
yeah, that's my point. Exactly. Fine, wear what you want. Just, if you're going to be so pro one thing and then do a U-turn, and you do this publicly, people might want to hear your reasoning. That's all. It's like if I was some sort of vegan activist and I made a big stink about it and banged the drum about this on TV all the time, and then the next time you saw me, I'm tucking into a Big Mac, someone might want to go, weren't you the guy who was all this and that? And I think that'd be a fair thing to do. But she just seems to have softened her dress sense in terms of Islamic tradition, which is fine. It's just, it'd be interesting to hear why she has.
Exactly. But she did this documentary where she was looking at Islamic marriages, and a lot of Muslims out there apparently don't register their marriages, so they're not legally recognized under the British state. So when they divorce, they don't get the same rights as they would if they had a registry done as well.
What's it called? A nikah? What's it called?
A nikah. Yeah.
I've had about 20 of them. It's great. Doesn't mean nothing.
Means now. Funnily enough, like, apparently nikah just means sex in Arabic.
Excellent.
I didn't realize if that was true or not, because that's like a wedding means something different. But that's what a nikah.
Where's credit's due? They cut to the chase there, don't they? None of this holy matrimony, none of this marriage vows, just sex, please.
I don't know if someone could verify that for me, but that's what I heard.
We don't need no verification. It's been spoken, therefore it is now true.
It's true.
That's how we roll.
Truth. But yeah, that's what I told my cousin once. Funny story. We went to a quote unquote a nikah.
So this is, have we said this is like a traditional Islamic wedding?
Yeah, it's an Islamic wedding where you just sign the Islamic contract. I told my cousin, I said, do you know what nikah means? And he went, no, why? I said, oh, just ask your Arab friend. And he texted his Arab friend and said, oh, we went to a nikah today. And his friend replied, what the fuck? What's wrong with you people? Why would you do that? He goes, why? And then he told him what it meant. And he goes, oh, what does it mean? He goes, like boom tang, boom boom, Like, okay. And he's like, oh, what the hell? So that's what it means, apparently. I don't know if that actually is true, but I would love.
It's true. It's fact. It's been said on Taking the Myth.
Well, I've said it, so it's true.
So that the issue we have here is a lot of women are entering into these nikah marriages, Islamic marriages, which is all well and good. The problem is you have to go to a UK registry office and get it done officially in the eyes of the law and the government. Otherwise, it's not recognised. And the issue with that is you're granted fewer rights as a couple. If you're not married in the UK, there's certain things that are not quite on an even playing field if you're not married. So a lot of these people only find this out, ironically enough, when they actually try and get a divorce. And they're told, what do you mean a divorce? You're not legally married. They had no idea. Then all of a sudden, they're not entitled to their house, for instance, which may be in their so-called husband's name. Custody of children can be a bit more difficult, etc. And it just seems like there's a lot of ignorance, in the nicest possible sense, regarding traditional religious marriages in the UK, that they're not really worth anything outside of the spiritual, of course.
I'm just amazed. Anyone would think that their Islamic marriage counts as a real marriage under the British state, because we're not living in an Islamic country, so why would anyone think that their marriage is recognised under English law? Just makes no sense. And then the reason I think that the reason why this continues is because, like, for a lot of Muslims, the Islamic marriage is what counts as the real marriage. So it doesn't matter if you're not married under British law, as long as you've got your Islamic marriage done, you're married. That's it. And some couples then do go on to get, their registry done a few months down the line, a year down the line, and then some don't. And some men were finding a problem with this, saying, why do we need to register marriages? Because that would mean, polygamy will be outlawed, and we know that's permissible in Islam. So it's funny how men were coming out against this. The problem is that the reason why this problem will continue is because, as one of the women on the documentary mentioned, it's like, if you had to choose between an Islamic marriage and the British law, then the Islamic one always comes first. And there's a campaign going to get the Islamic marriage registered under the British law, just like Jewish marriages and Quaker marriages are. But I don't know if they really need to change the law. It just needs to be a case of educating people. Like, just make sure they know, by the way, your Islamic marriage, while it might be valid under Islamic law, doesn't count under British law. As long as you know that, it's fine. And for some people, it suits them because you can get married quickly and then you can get divorced quickly as well.
Triple talaq.
Oh, yeah. It's all about that triple T.
So just to explain what that is, that's basically you can invoke, well, say an Arabic phrase 3 times, and it's almost like Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. And, I'm paraphrasing.
Or Candyman.
Candyman. Oh, there's no place like home, there's no place like home, there's no place like home. And you're divorced instantly. Like, Allah goes, what? Sorry? Triple T, that'll do. And that's it, the marriage is done. Which is magical, really. Saves lots of admin.
Well, a lot of other... There are a few, I don't know how many, but there are a few Sharia courts that say this is unacceptable, and they will issue a divorce certificate. So they say it's not enough to say that, because that's not Islamic apparently. So they will issue a divorce certificate. But the thing with that is, you don't have to wait a long time to get an Islamic divorce. And I think maybe that's where British law maybe should change that. You shouldn't have to wait maybe 2 years to get divorced.
They are changing that. They are looking into it, actually.
I think, that would be a better idea. But also, like, there are some people who, they know that it's just an Islamic marriage. Like, there are a few people, apparently, this is a big thing in London.
Oh, look at you with your new fancy London facts.
I know. So here in London, but apparently there are lots of people here who just want to have halal sex, so they just get an Islamic marriage.
And like hotels that rent by the hour kind of thing.
Well, I think
so. I've heard. I've been told.
Mm-hmm. So they want to have sex, but obviously they don't want to have premarital sex because it's still a big taboo. So
Haram.
Haramazan. Yeah.
Stop. Haramatan.
They'll get an Islamic marriage done because then they know they don't really have to stay married for long. Or it might be like, I know a couple who had an Islamic marriage done because they were going out, but they couldn't keep just going out. It was becoming awkward for their families. So they did have an Islamic marriage done. I suppose in a way they do see themselves as husband and wife because they're a couple and they have been together for quite a few years, but they're still very young. And I don't know if they're getting a registry done soon, but they primarily got the Islamic one done just to keep their parents happy because they're not believing Muslims. So for them, it wasn't important, but for their parents, it was. But they knew what they were getting into. And I think the issue with this is just to educate people more, like let them know this isn't valid under English law. And if there are imams or mosques registering, that they should also tell the couple, you should try and go for a civil marriage as well. And, just to let you know, this is valid only, under Islam, but not English law. But there's a lady I know who's saying that, in Islam, a marriage contract is just that. It's a contract. There's nothing religious about it. So you don't really need like a mullah or an imam to conduct the marriage. It's all about just signing a contract. But I thought if there's nothing religious about the Islamic marriage, then why doesn't a civil marriage count as both Islamic and civil? I thought that was a really interesting point to look into. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know if registering or recognizing Islamic marriages would count. And Miriam Sarah made the point that, in a multi-faith society, we need to change laws to recognize that. But we don't. That's why we need secular laws, because then everyone's equal under the law.
One law for all.
Exactly, hashtag. A civil marriage should be enough for everyone.
I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about, Allah's law, or getting married in the eyes of Allah. And I find that these tends to be in ways that doesn't come from other religions, like the Jewish tradition or the Christian tradition. There doesn't seem to be a distrust or dislike of so-called man-made law. Christianity has the render unto Caesar aspect of it that Christians can cherry pick to get around paying taxes and paying to the state and following the laws of the land, etc. Whereas I found the more conservative you get with Islam, the more difficult that becomes. So I mean, people often worry about what's going to happen when an Islamist party in the UK gets voted into power, and I don't.
In the UK, that would never happen.
Well,
though.
Definitely not. And well, I say definitely not. Who knows? But I mean, one of the reasons I don't tend to worry about that is the further right wing you become as a Muslim towards the Islamist scale, the more disdain you have for democracy and the democratic process. And we've seen this before, where Islamists have started campaigns in London as well, various other places where they've said don't vote. It's un-Islamic. They put propaganda around city centres saying it's against Allah's will to vote in man-made democratic elections. Sharia trumps democracy, etc. So it's just one of them strange things that the more conservative you get in that faith, the less respect or adherence you have to civil law, UK law. So it's interesting because you I think mentioned that documentary as well. Mariam Francois, this is her claim, so I don't know how accurate it is, but she said that if Muslims were to get married in France under in an Islamic wedding, and France have got a sizable Muslim population, she said it'd be very rare for an imam to do that without having a legal contract at the same time, one that's recognised by French law. Them two things go hand in hand in France in a way that doesn't happen in the UK. Strangely, I think in the UK, because our law is secular in nature, we tend to say, go have your religious marriage, but we don't ram home the fact that they need to get it recognised by law. We don't make it a prerequisite. We don't hammer it home. We say kind of do what you want. It's almost the fact that so much freedom's given in this sense, it is leading to these women not knowing that it does need to be registered because they're just left to their own devices.
Yeah, I mean, there are some women in this country that I know of that will have Islamic marriages because their so-called husband is already married and he wants a second wife and she wants to be a co-wife and she's okay with that. And that's one thing that a registered nikah would end. It would end polygamy. And I think that's why people wouldn't be that happy with it, to be honest. And as long as you put God's law first, this is why this is going to continue.
Well, it's interesting. It's one to keep an eye on. And one of the main reasons to keep an eye on, I suppose, is because it tends always to be the Muslim women who are disadvantaged by these situations, polygamy, unrecognised marriage, Sharia courts, things like that. It always seems to be the women that they want to keep away from, individual liberty, unfortunately. So that's one of the things that needs looking at. And fair play, I don't agree with Mariam Francois now, on pretty much anything, but I suppose that documentary was helpful in a lot of ways. Are we giving us some credit? Do we need to? Shall we?
Yeah, it was really interesting
Fair's
to watch.
Okay, so I think it's now 11:15 in Manchester. What time is it in London? With your fancy time zones.
Well, I can't keep track, so life is so fast-paced here.
What time is it? The time of your life. That's what it is, Iram.
It's time of my life. Sorry. Just need to grab a glass of water.
Oh, a glass?
Glass.
Jesus Christ. Make sure you get all the lime scale off it.
The water here is disgusting.
Look at that. How anti am I getting? I'm attacking the water in London. That's how petty I am.
No. It's true. The water here is disgusting.
Yeah.
it's hard water here. So water up north is a lot cleaner and a lot better because it's soft water.
Yes.
And here it's, I prefer bottled water because I can't get used to it. Even my hair is suffering. You have to feel for me.
I do. We'll put an appeal out. See if someone can help. All right. Well, it's been great to catch up. We've not done it for a while, but I think we've covered quite a lot considering how late it is. Is there anything else you wanted to get in at all before I let you get back to your London life of Riley?
Did you want to go through some of the questions that we have?
We could.
Somebody asked you, this is a bit controversial, do you regret RTing the story, i.e. retweeting, the story about MPs voting that animals aren't sentient and can't suffer because the headline at least wasn't true? It annoyed me because you are normally so good at checking before retweeting. So go on, Fascist Night, explain that one.
Do I regret it? No, I'd do it again. I'd do it again in an instant. No, so this is fair. So let me see if I can find the guy who asked the question. At Thoughts for Day 2.
Or T. Hinker.
T. Hinker. Yeah, it's a fair question.
Oh, did you hear what he's done there?
T. Hinker.
Hinker.
Yeah. So what he's referring to, I'm assuming it's a him. I don't want to assume it's a him just because he said he's a thinker, Iram. I tweeted out an independent. This is a mainstream newspaper. Usually, it's considered factual journalism. I'm sure it's got a left slant to it, perhaps. But I tweeted out an article they'd put out, and what happens is when you share these things on Twitter, it just copies the headline into your Twitter as an auto-generated tweet, and you hit send. The headline is, "The Tories have voted that animals can't feel pain as part of the EU bill, marking the beginning of our anti-science Brexit." Now, my interest in this was animal welfare. I thought if we're having because I looked at the article, and the article does try and back up the claim of that headline. It tries to say that the Tories are not agreeing with this or not signing on with this or signing something else that'll mean that animals aren't considered sentient. And I suppose an undetailed reading of that, it does point to that. But a little while later, some more information came to light. Zach Goldsmith tweeted out that no, MPs did not vote that animals aren't sentient, and he gave 4 points as to why. So his point is that UK has higher standards than any other country in Europe, and this government has delivered a blizzard of animal welfare initiatives over the past 4 months, with much, much more to come. So his argument is they've refused to sign something in EU legislation, which seems like they're claiming something nefarious about animal sentience, or they're conceding that animals can't feel pain by not signing this bill. It turns out that actually our UK legislation for animal welfare is more robust, stronger and detailed than this legislation would be. If they were to sign this legislation in the EU, it'd actually be a step backwards, and that does seem like the case. So that's fine for me, and I took this information and I tweeted it out straight away saying, what did I tweet? Some more info that would suggest it's not how it's being represented in the press, bracket shocker. And I tweeted this guy's statement which clarifies it. Now there's different ways you can go about this, because I've not latched onto some really far left or far right news source frothing at the mouth and tweet it out there because it confirms my agenda. This looked like a credible report about some legislation. Seemed quite dull really in terms of the details. So there's a few options there, and once I found out it's not what's being reported, you can do what most people do and just ignore any dissent and keep it there. That's what a lot of people do when they tweet things that confirm to some of their biases. Or I could have just deleted the tweet, which I didn't do. So I just replied to the same tweet, so it's in the thread with the updated information so that everyone can see that it's probably not what they reported. So what would you do in that situation? Is it my responsibility to fact check a report that's been done by a professional independent journalist? Or should I? I mean, it wasn't like they was saying something like, so extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence is my viewpoint. So it wasn't like they were saying Elvis had returned and he was now given residency at Vegas and it's going to be a comeback tour. I'd have some questions. But if they're telling me that the Tories are not signing some legislation, and that's what they reported, and they linked to the legislation in the article, I'm not going to be too sceptical about that, really. Maybe I should be, I don't know. But whose responsibility is it to get the facts right there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's the newspaper's responsibility to get it right.
Yeah.
You tweeted it. Fair enough if there were some things in there that turned out not to be as it was reported, but you did, chase it up.
Yeah.
After said, oh, hang on a minute, this story, not quite as it seemed, blah, blah. I don't see why you should be held responsible. You're only human at the end of the day.
What's what you think? But yeah, I mean, I acknowledge I have, I suppose, an audience, a sizable audience. I don't know what it's in comparison to, really. It seems quite small fry in terms of other Twitter accounts or sources, but I understand that there's people that will come to me for information, so I don't want to be sharing things that are inaccurate. So wherever I do make a mistake, I will try and correct it. That's all I can say, because I don't want to be right about things in the wrong way, if that makes sense. I want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to share things that just, anyone can find any information and articles that just confirm what they believe, and I want facts. So yeah, I'm happy to update things and correct things or change things.
The Tories.
Yeah, oh, that's funny. It's nice to be accused of being pro-Tory and anti-Tory in the same year. So it's far too central for my own good. See what other questions we had.
Someone told us to point out about, the horrible attack on the Sufi mosque.
Yes.
In Egypt, and
that was Jan.
That was Jan Skelton.
I've met Jan. She's lovely. I see her every now and then. She comes to a lot of the conference events. Secular conference events in London. She's always pleasant to talk to. She said the horrific attack on the Sufi mosque in Egypt deserves a mention. The death toll is now 305. Brackets, the usual suspects are arguing that sectarian religious violence has nothing to do with religion. What would a religiously motivated attack look like, I wonder? And that's a great question, because when you ask when these people say it's nothing to do with religion, it's all political. When you say to them, okay, so what are the rules? You tell me what a religiously motivated act of terror would look like, or a bad act that is religiously motivated. What would that look like? What would be on your tick sheet of qualification for a religious act of terror? And they can never give you that criteria. So their position's completely unfalsifiable. They cannot. I can tell you what it'd look like if it was purely a political act. For instance, I can quite clear, I can look at that and say, look, that's got nothing to do with religion. So, I mean, so there's people on the far right who muddy the issue as well. If some guy goes and holds up a supermarket and robs it, but he just so happens to be a Muslim, they'll then lump that into the category of Muslims doing bad, religiously motivated deeds. And that's not true. That's not a religious act. That's not informed by his scripture whatsoever. That's just a criminal being a criminal, and the fact that he's a Muslim is just a detail of that. However, instead of robbing a bookies, if he goes into William Hill and shoots the shit out of the place because gambling's haram, I think you can quite clearly say that's a religiously motivated criminal act. So I think it depends on the specifics, but these people who always bat away any religious causality can never tell you what a religious act of terror would look like.
Exactly, and obviously Courtney Wellman would disagree with you. Oh my
God, please don't do this to me. I'm tired, it's late, and I will go to Gigglesville on a one-way ticket.
So, CJ Wellman tweeted, warning, aftermath of the terrorist attack on the Sinai Mosque that left 305 Muslims dead. A reminder again that terrorism is rooted in political objectives, not religious. And yeah, it's funny how I think was it IS that claimed that they would regard, I think, Sufis as heretics.
Yeah.
It's not really political then, is it?
Well,
so what do you call it when Muslims kill Muslims from a different sect? Is that Islamophobic?
This is interesting, yeah, because I mean, that is I can't. So that is a death toll. That's 305 people. That I can't visualize in my head what 305 dead bodies look like in one location. That, my mind, I try and get there with it, and then there's a kind of, I can't get any further, because it's an unthinkable image. That is a ridiculous amount of people killed.
That's shockingly high.
Yeah, in comparison to the terror attacks we've seen in the West, that is astronomical. And there's an interesting dichotomy here. They'll say it's not religious, it's political. And I think that's a distinction without a difference there. I don't understand why they're mutually exclusive. Your politics can be motivated entirely by your religion. These are some of your deepest, like a lot of my political beliefs are, it is completely informed by my views on humanism and secularism. Some of my deep beliefs. Why is it any different for a religious person who's trying to get legislation in place that conforms to their religious beliefs? When does that stop being a religious thing and becomes this magical get out of jail free political only issue? We have these conservative Christians across the West and across the world, in fact, who are trying to block abortion, trying to block gay marriage and gay rights purely on religious grounds. However, they're engaged in a political endeavour. Is Corny Jezebel Whirlman going to argue that's got nothing to do with Christianity?
Well, we always told that Muslims first and foremost identify as Muslims, that their religion informs a lot of a lot of the way they think and the choices they make. So can we really separate the politics from the religion? Not always, I think, and especially if you're an Islamist and you do believe Islam should be the political ruling force as well, then you can't separate the religion from politics, can you?
No, definitely can't. It's a self-defeating thing to say, even if he's right, which I don't think he is. I don't think it's political. I think it's religious. But even if he's right that it is political, the politics are clearly informed by the religion. So he's basically wrong in 360 degrees panoramic view. Every angle of wrongness coming at him. Imagine being that guy who has to wake up every time there's a terror attack, which is all the time practically now, and say, no, nothing to see here, nothing to do with Islam. Imagine having to be that guy and having to look in the mirror and go about your daily life knowing you're lying about mass murder of innocent people. Because he must know. Or has he convinced himself? I don't know.
It's like people are more concerned about defending religion and the reputation of the religion rather than trying to spend as much energy into finding out why it's happened and to stop it from happening again. It's like they're not as, of course they're sad that people have died, but they're more sad that Islam's name got tarnished in the process. Fine, I get it. If it's your religion, then you don't want to be associated with that, and that's not what Islam means to you. But I'm sorry, but that's what Islam means to these assholes who are killing people in the name of their religion. And you just really have to ask yourself why you're more concerned and more upset that the reputation of the religion is getting dragged through the mud here. Surely we should be more concerned that people have been murdered. So Mehdi Hassan tweeted about Radko Mladic, who was responsible for a really horrific genocide against Bosnia's Muslims. He finally was convicted and imprisoned. And Mehdi, we love Mehdi. Mehdi decided when he heard the news to tweet, imagine if he'd been a Muslim. Muslims would now be asked to condemn him. Right-wingers will be debating the violence inherent in Islam. Thankfully and rightly, we don't ask Christians to do this. Mehdi, was that really a time to be scoring points here? Just say, yay, hashtag well done. Or just, glad that this man is imprisoned now for the horrific crimes that he committed. I mean, yeah, if he had committed them in the name of Christianity, then yeah, people would be questioning the religion. But really, Mehdi? I mean, come on. It's like he just does this deliberately to wind me up.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that the Bosnian genocide, which is not funny, by the way, turn of phrase, but I mean, that was kind of like a litmus test for a lot of Muslims, I think, because we hear this whole, well, the Islamists are angry and terrorists are angry because we're meddling in Muslim affairs abroad in the Middle East. But then when Muslims were being slaughtered en masse in Bosnia, there was a lot of UK Muslims, Majid Nawaz included, I think he mentions this in his book Radical. One of the things that radicalised him was the fact that we didn't intervene. We let this happen. It was a case of the West doesn't care about Muslim blood. The left is only interested... the West is only interested in its own affairs. It won't step up and protect innocent Muslims. So the fact that we didn't intervene then helped to, put him on this path of radicalisation and many of his fellow travellers. So I don't think you can win. I think that when all said and done, the problem here is the Islamist ideology.
Yeah, it's always tricky whether you intervene or not. I mean, I'm not going to come out and be really naive about this. I think a lot of nations out there, well, every nation has its own self-interest, not everyone is. I mean, yeah, sometimes countries do intervene on humanitarian grounds, but there is sometimes another motive to that. But I'm not really that fussed as long as they save lives. We know that everyone has a motive and an agenda, but you have to decide which side you're going to be on, which is going to be on the right side of history, I guess. And what happened, and to think it happened in Europe as well. We keep forgetting that there are Muslims in Europe, and this happened in our lifetime, and very recently in our lifetime as well. I mean, I was too young to remember it and realize what was happening.
95, something like that.
Yes, it was in the early to mid 90s, so I wouldn't remember as much. And
no, yeah, it was early 90s, earlier than that, yeah, 1990s.
Yeah, so I would have been too young to remember that. And I was old enough to remember Iraq and Afghanistan, and that was, the thing that got me a bit more politically aware. And this was the same for the older generation of Muslims. This was what, this was used in the narrative to, get them to fight jihad. But just, coming back to Mehdi here, I don't see why it has to be some sort of contest. Why even mention it? Oh, if he was Muslim, he'd be, people will be asked to condemn him as a Muslim. Well, not really. I mean, look at Saddam Hussein. He was executed, but, Muslims weren't told to apologize for Saddam because he was a largely secular leader. He wasn't exactly an Islamist. Horrible man, but, I don't remember Muslims being asked to condemn Saddam Hussein, so I disagree with him entirely on that. I just didn't see the point of him having to make it some sort of contest, really.
I think this has quite possibly been the longest episode of Taking the Myth ever. So I think we've pretty much nailed it for 1 week, and I hope your London adventure goes well. Sort of.
Sort of. Just jealous.
A little bit, because every time there's an event, it's always in London. I end up I must go to London about eight or 9 times a year, just for a temporary marriage most of the time. But
why do you think I'm here? I've had like 20 temporary marriages. Yeah,
marriage is good. The water's shit. Swings and roundabouts. All right, Iram, it's been a pleasure as usual. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Godless Spell Checker podcast. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please consider supporting by visiting gspellchecker.com/support. From here, you can either become a Patreon subscriber, or you can give a one-off donation through PayPal, or you can just follow some instructions on how best to share the podcast on social media, put it on a memory stick, throw it at people, whatever works best. Any support's greatly appreciated. I think we've all learned something here today.